Hi. In this class, we're going to continue creating our character, our first person character. So, first thing we need to do is to start with opening the first person character. Now, we can find it here. Sometimes you open it and it opens up like this. And all you need to do is click at the top where it says open the blueprint editor. Okay. I'm not sure why it does this, but just sometimes it does. Just click here. And then it will open our familiar event graph and viewport, etc. Okay. So let's carry on now. Here we can see we've got our capsule, which we mentioned in the previous class. The arrow is here too. And the mesh has nothing else attached to it. So we can leave that as it is. We don't need to put anything in there. There is character movement controls, which we can look at later on. So what's the capsule for? Well, it's a reference or a helper that Unreal Engine uses to simulate the character's body shape, especially since there's no mesh. But even so, with this, it can replicate the role of the person. So it simulates the space that the character's body will occupy. And it's not going to be seen in game. It's going to be invisible, but all its other attributes, for example, the collisions, will be working, okay? And that's what kicks in the overlaps in blueprints as well. So it's like the character's body, but just without the mesh, like a reference to it. And the settings that we would have to work with are over here. So we can adjust the size of the capsule, but the rest is already set up. And you can see that the capsule center is actually positioned at 0, 0, 0, according to the XYZ axes. So you can go to the shape settings and adjust the size if you want to. Let's take a look at some of the settings. The first parameter is the capsule half height. Okay, so why does it work like half height? Why? Well, it's taken into account 88 as the half height. From 0 to the top is 88 centimeters, which is where it believes the character's head would be. So it's going to be in total 1.76 centimeters, okay, from top to bottom. So here, what I like to do is make it a little bit shorter, maybe to 80. So it's about 1.6 meters tall, okay, 160 centimeters. Just makes it a little bit more realistic. So if there's anything under 1.6 meters, that in terms of geometry, you're going to bump into it, okay? So, and also vice versa above. But you don't really want to be knocking your head on plants or colliding with things just above you, do you? So I seem to find that 1.6 is a good height to have. So if you want to copy exactly what I'm doing, feel free to do so. Just make it a little shorter, just so you can freely move about within the scene. Now, you can also make the character a bit smaller too, in terms of maybe not so wide, okay? And it's quite interesting, especially when you get into architectural scenes. There's some gaps you might struggle to get through, so you can adjust that too. So that's controlled here with the radius, okay, which is half of the diameter. So you can adjust that so that you're not so wide. You almost like view that as your waistline, okay? So we can choose to make the character wider, fatter, or slimmer, okay? I like to set this to 20, just to help us get through any potentially narrow gaps in the scene. And sometimes it might be even more useful, perhaps going through some doors as well, because you don't want to keep getting stuck in your scene. So 20 is the value that I tend to go for. What else can we do? Well, we have our capsule. Now we need to add a camera, because we need to be able to see, don't we, from the perspective of the player. So when we press play, let's play it in a preview window, just so I can see it at the same time. So when we press play, if we have our camera, then we're able to simulate what the character can see from eye level. And we can start adding some really cool features to make it even more lifelike as well. So we'll add a camera so that we can control that. Let's just add and then search for camera. And we've got 3 options here, 3 different types of cameras. I tend to go with cine camera. And this camera is just an average camera. If you know the editing concepts that come with Unreal and the cameras, then you'll know how to work with these various cameras. Cine camera, however, is a good one to do because it simulates what a real lifelike DSLR camera would do, such as the depth of field, the lens effects as well. So since we're using ArcViz, that's what we're going to use. Okay, so by default, it puts it to the 0 point in a world position. And let's adjust it though to the height so it sits in line with the character's eyes. Okay, so just somewhere around here. If you just think about where the eyes would be, it'd probably be around about 58 centimeters above 0, which is a little lower than the character's head, okay, or the forehead. So once you're navigating around the scene, you'll start to see that the perspective is just right. So this is a good setup for your ArcViz experiences. So let me just compile and then push play. Okay, great. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but the focus is a little bit tighter, isn't it? Our field of vision is a little bit more narrow. So we'll set up some of these camera settings later and adjust some of the details, which you can do in the details section. But let's just leave it where it is for now. And we'll set up all the other features later. Now, where this camera is positioned, as we said, is right in the eye line. In other setups like third person character, they would have the camera further away. But we don't need that, we need it in the eye line. The arrow shows us where the person is facing, so that's why we need to make sure the camera is facing in the same way, okay? So now we know the camera's the camera and the arrow are pointing forward, which actually matches up with our first person player. It's pointed in the same direction. So that's good. Everything should be aligned just like that. And this here is our reference of where our character will spring from, okay? So that will help us to see where our player is going to start in the experience. So we'll leave it there and let's take it a step further in the next class.